Hi everyone, it's Bryn from Coral Designs Art Studio, and today we are going to be making one of these fun little scratch pad papers. I don't know if you remember this, but they're those papers that have different colors underneath them, and you can kind of scratch away at the top part and create whatever kind of creation you want to create, whatever design or drawing you want to create. So you kind of like, I'm just trying to do this with one hand, but scratch away and I'll try and make another smiley face there. Yep, see, you can see some of the different colors there. You can take your time and draw beautiful little messages and shapes and pictures. You can doodle on these. You can just kind of maybe wrap a present, a small gift in these, and then kind of make your own pattern. Lots of different things you can do on. Or you can simply have it, you know, in your bag and doodle with them when you want. Alright, so that's what we're making today. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here's what you'll need. You'll need some oil pastels. I've had these in my collection for a long time, but I have seen a similar type of oil pastel in the dollar store, so I don't think they're very hard to find. You can always find them at Michael's or I guess Joann's or Hobby Lobby, those kind of artsy crafty stores, Itsy Bitsy, craft store, things like that. So any craft store should have some oil pastels. You also need some masking tape, a container. I am actually reusing an old cream container. I think this is like a Pond's or a Beachy container. If you have a lid, it's kind of better that you do, because you're going to be leaving this mixture that you're going to make in your container for a bit while the different coats dry. So it's a good idea to have a container with a lid, or if you don't, simply put a piece of cardboard over it and it should be fine. The other thing that you need is some dish soap and some tempera paint. I picked black. You can pick whatever color you want. Again, I just found this at the dollar store, but you can find it at craft stores, wherever sells paints and things like that. You'll need something to scratch your final product with, your final paper with. I'm using a paper clip, and I would suggest using a sponge brush for this project. I find it works better than the regular paintbrushes. So, I mean, you'll see when I'm applying the paint and dish soap mixture onto the piece of paper that it actually works a lot better. You can squeeze out a lot of the paint and get it really into all the bits of the paper. You'll also need a piece of paper. You can use whatever paper you want. I would suggest using a piece of recycled paper because it's good for the environment, and really you're only going to use one side of it, so as long as there's a side that you can color, then that's great. Alright, so those are the supplies. So let's get started and I'll show you exactly what to do. So first thing you want to do is take a bit of the masking tape and secure your paper onto a mat or a piece of cardboard. The paper doesn't really curl up too badly if you just kind of secure it on two of the four sides of whatever surface you're working on. And I really do suggest that you use a piece of scrap cardboard, or I'm using a placemat here, to put your paper on, because the paint will go everywhere and the pastels will go everywhere. So that way you know your table surface or your work surface is protected. So I've done it on both sides, as you can see. Right, so I've left the top open and the bottom open, and it's completely fine because the paper doesn't really curl too badly when you just do the two sides. The next thing you need to do is take your pastels, and in any way that you want, you're simply going to color the paper in. The key to this is just press hard, and if you need to go over a certain spot because you see white spots, then do that, but make sure that paper is nicely saturated with the oil pastels. There's also no rhyme or reason how to color your page. You can do it whichever way you want. I've sort of made this kind of rainbow pattern. If you want your paper to be all one color, then that's fine. If you want it to be two colors, then that's fine. If you want it to be a lot more colors than I've done here, then sure, go for it. You can use a bit of black as well, but again, it depends, black pastel, oil pastel, but it depends on what color your tempera paint is. I'm using black tempera paint, so it kind of cancels out the final look if I use a black pastel. But if you like black and if you want to do it, then it's fine. You imagine if you use black as your oil pastel color and then use a different color of tempera paint, maybe in a yellow or pink, like a hot pink color. I think it looks really pretty when you're scratching away your design. So keep coloring it in, and once you're done, I'll show you what to do. Okay, so once your paper is completely covered with the oil pastels, you are going to need to put about a quarter size dollop of dish soap. Any dish soap will do. A quarter size, maybe about that big, or this is what a quarter looks like where I'm from. So about this size of dish soap. You don't need a ton. You just need a little bit to mix in with the tempera paint. So I'm just going to pour a bit of the dish soap in my container. Just close that so it doesn't get all over the place. Oops. Alright, so then you are going to take your tempera paint and squeeze it in. So just maybe just kind of eyeball the measurement, how much you think you might use. You're not going to use a ton of paint. Like this bottle of tempera paint will last me quite a few sessions of creating this kind of artwork. So, you know, maybe just enough that it covers, definitely enough that it covers the dish soap, and maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons or so. Yeah, if you can see. I'll try to show you how much I have in there. So it's a bit hard to tell, but gives you an idea of how much I put in there. Then you're going to take your foam brush and you're simply going to mix the paint and dish soap. Mix it really well because you want that dish soap incorporated with your paint evenly and nicely and thoroughly. It's the dish soap, I believe, that makes it easy for the paint to kind of be scratched off or pushed off the oil pastel surface. I'm not a chemist, but I'm sure there's a chemical reaction that's kind of happening in there that's creating the ability to scratch this paint off of the oil pastels. So, alright, so once you have your tempera paint and dish soap mixed nicely, you're going to put your first coat of paint onto your paper. So just paint directly onto the paper. The first coat, don't worry if it's not very thick. You're gonna let this dry. Now I have tried this with 2 coats and I've tried it with 3 coats. The example that I was showing you right now, the one where I was scratching off, that was actually a 3-coater. So it definitely is thicker. It cracked a little bit too. So when I was, for example, when I was making this heart, when I was cutting out this heart shape, it kind of cracked by itself and the paint kind of flaked off itself. So be aware of that. I think for this one I'm going to do 2 coats so I can show you what it looks like. So keep painting the entire piece of paper with your tempera and dish soap mixture. You can see that you can tell that you can see the oil pastel through it. But like I said, you're going to put another coat on this page, so not to worry. And that's why you want to have the lid or something to cover that jar. You don't want this spilling all over the place. So I'm just going to continue to put a little bit more paint on this And then see, I'm kind of smushing, is that a word? Smushing my paintbrush down to kind of get all that other paint, black paint off this applicator, this sponge tip applicator. And I like to reuse my sponge tip applicators, so definitely wash yours and reuse them. They can be used quite a bit. Alright, so now that my page is all covered, I'm going to let it dry. If you want the process to be sped up a bit, then you can use the heating tool. You can also use a fan, like a handheld fan, or even a piece of paper and fan it. And then you're going to apply another coat of it. So I'll show you what it looks like after this paint has dried. See you in a bit. So you can see that my paint is starting to dry. There's bits of it that are definitely dry. Like if I touch this part right here, it's completely dry. The shiny bits, that's how you know that that part isn't dry. So just be aware of that. I've fanned this a little bit to try and speed up the process. One thing I did want to say is if you're using a heating tool, be careful. Hold it a little far back. I don't know how the paint reacts to the heat, so just be aware of that, alright? Just be very careful. So this is the finished product, this one right here. As you can see, I've sort of put it on this book. You can use it as a cover for a notebook, or like I said before, as maybe some funky wrapping paper that someone can kind of scratch all over after they open their gift. So again, this is the one I just made that has the 2 layers of paint, and as you can see, the paint comes off a lot more easier than this one, which is the one that I did with 3 layers. There, you need a little bit more elbow grease to get the paint off this one, and it's a lot more opaque than this one. You can still sort of see the oil pastels peeking through the black here. But if I had to pick one over the other, the 3 layer, the 2 layer, I'd pick the 2. It's just a lot more easier to draw with, and it's a lot less paint. That's not necessary. You don't need the 3 layers. So do 2 layers of the paint and dish soap mixture. That's it for this video. If you like it, I hope you give it a thumbs up and do consider subscribing. Thanks so much, and see you next week.